Welcome to the 2020 Ballarat Virtual Heritage Weekend and our History at Home series. Local musician Mick Trembath is going to take us on a light-hearted journey back in time through the history of the live music scene during the 1980s and a tour of our local music venues. Please enjoy the presentation.
My name is Mick Trembath and I've been a guitarist for about 36 years now. I've played across Europe and Asia and all across Australia. I've run festivals, I've taught at least 1,000 people to play music, and I have lost count of the amount of gigs I've done in my lifetime. None of this would have happened to me if I wasn't part of a little pub called the Bridge Mall Inn. I started out playing pubs in 1988, which was also the year that I turned 18. It was the bicentennial of Australia that year, and there was huge upheaval everywhere, with the entire country redefining who it was and talking about what the last 200 years had meant. 1988 was also the year that my auntie, Kim Odgers, and her then partner Wayne Long began running a pub known as the Bridge Mall Inn. It was also roughly the time that the Kane government in Victoria had extended licensing laws, which meant that hotels could now stay open until 1 a.m. if they served food or they had live music. Knowing that the pubs could stay open longer with live music, my auntie asked me if I knew any bands that were looking for a gig, and of course I did. All of my friends were playing in some sort of band, but most of my friends were writing original music instead of playing covers of already popular songs. You have to remember that music outside the mainstream was really difficult to find in Ballarat in 1988. The two ways to access new independent music was by listening to 3BBB community radio station at SMB, which was playing a huge and diverse array of music, or by buying records at Black Swan on Sturt Street that had an amazing selection of music to choose from. But music was largely dominated by local commercial radio stations playing the top 40 music of the era. So the community of people that were listening to new original music was relatively small in Ballarat in 1988, and many pubs wouldn't open their doors to a bunch of new musicians who'd written their own material because they were worried that they wouldn't attract a crowd and they wouldn't make any money. There was almost nowhere to get a gig if you played independent, original live music in Ballarat in 1988. So I talked to some of my friends about the Bridge Mall and my auntie's offer to put on new bands. A group of us decided that rather than just get a gig for ourselves, we'd use this opportunity to promote all the different bands and musicians we knew that were playing in sheds and lounge rooms across Ballarat. We called the night the Banana Arcade, and I really can't remember why. And we drew up a formal contract in biro on a piece of A4 paper. There were basically two clauses. One, we had complete artistic control. This meant we could do anything we liked and put on any bands we like. And two, the pub could keep the bar money as long as they kicked in some cash for the PA. You have to remember that we were all 18 or 19 years old and none of us were really arts lawyers. We took the contract down, everyone signed, we drank a beer to toast the occasion, and away we went. We played the first few nights and word got out that there was a live music venue that let people play their own music, and suddenly a whole independent live music scene grew up from there. In 1988, there were no mobile phones, so to get a gig, people would just come round to your house with a bottle of beer and ask if there was a spot open in the night. People who felt like there was no place for them in Ballarat started to come down to the pub because the place was open to everybody and no one cared how you dressed or what you thought or who you were. It was an amazing space of diversity and acceptance for everyone. There was also no Facebook or Tinder, so if you wanted to catch up with your mates or to see if someone liked you as much as you liked them, well then this was the way you did it. You came down to the pubs to watch a band. So the Bridge Mall Inn, like so many pubs across Australia, became its own tiny, complex and extraordinary community, with punters and bands and venue owners all working together to keep live music running 3 and 4 nights a week. Soon bands from Adelaide and Melbourne and Canberra and all over Australia would come down to get a gig. Some of the best independent bands in Australia played their early years at the Bridgie. Now, was it a perfect utopia? No, of course it wasn't. There was friction and arguments and tension and rivalries just like anything else. But you have to remember all of this was being run by people in their early 20s. We all learnt what to do while we were doing it. For me, as a musician, this was the best possible start that I ever could have had in the world of music because it taught me two things. One, there are no rules. If there are rules, you can bend them or break them or just make up new ones. And 2, if you want to do something, you have to do it yourself. The Bridge Mall was a place where many, many people worked together to be as free and fun as possible. In 1988, old Australia was passing, and we all felt that at the time. So many of us were sick of limited options and limited ideas, and we wanted something more, something bigger, something more complex, something more dynamic to do with our lives. Freedom is a really strange concept, and it means so many things to so many different people. To me, freedom was to sing and dance and go crazy at bands at the Bridge Mall Inn in 1988. Once you felt that sort of freedom, the freedom to say what you want, to dress like you like, to think how you want, to love and to argue and laugh and be part of a community of people who are looking for something bigger and wilder, well, it changes you and you don't see the world again in the same way. All of that stays with you for life. In 2020, the COVID-19 virus knocked live music out of the game. Live music venues closed for months, and it's something I never thought I would see happen. Many musicians were left without work, and many venues shut down because they were unable to cope with the pressure this situation put on them. It was a huge change to the entire industry and a great loss to Australian culture. That being said, I remember when the live music scene we all take for granted didn't exist, and it makes me happy knowing that out there somewhere there's a group of young ratbags ready to change the game again like we did in 1988. All power to them. Keep music live.